Lecture 2, Part 3, Unemployment. From the previous section of Lecture 2, we have seen that besides GDP and CPI, labor force and unemployment are also very important indicators to show the performance of the economy. So now, in this section, in Part 3, we will explain what is the important and how to compute labor force and unemployment for the economy. The first section is the definition and measurement of unemployment, and second is the classification of unemployment. So now firstly is the definition. From the population of the economy, we will divide them into two groups: the children, those people under 15 years old, and the other, those people from 15 years old and older. So now if we talk about labor force and unemployment, we do not care about the children because the children don't have to join the labor force and don't have to go to work. So now from the adult group, we will divide them into the labor force and those people outside the labor force. For example, the elderly, they are older than 15 years old, but they don't go to work because they are too old and they don't have to join, they don't have to work. The disabled people, the housewife or house husband, they are not ready to join the labor force and they are not ready to go to work. Those retired people, they go to work before and now they want to have a rest. And lastly, students in education and training, they want to go to work, but not at this time. They are not ready. They want to study more to have a better job and higher salary after their graduation. So if we exclude this group of persons outside the labor force, so the rest of either is the labor force. And those people in labor force may be employed or unemployed. So from this structure, we can see that unemployment, this group, are those people in labor force. They are ready to work. Different from these people outside labor force, they are not ready to work. The unemployed person are ready to work, but they are working, they are looking for the job and they still have no job. And if they can find a job, they become employed. So from this definition, now we go to the computation or the measurement of unemployment. The unemployment also be measured by the unemployment rate. Is the percentage of unemployed person among the labor force. So you will take the ratio of number of unemployed person divided by the labor force and times with the 100%. One more important indicator is the working time rate. It's the ratio of working day, actual working days, compared to total days ready to work. So if this working time rate is higher, it means that the unemployment rate is slower. And the last indicator is the labor force participation rate. It means that among the adult population, how many percent are ready to go to work? So if one country has high labor force participation rate, so it means that the economy won't have higher potential in producing goods and services, or they have high labor force. And if this rate the participation rate is lower, so it means that the number of people outside labor force is too high. It makes the ratio of labor force participation rate lower. In Vietnam, we can see that the labor force is large for many reasons. We have young population. This group of persons in Vietnam are ready to go to work, and in fact, they also join the labor force. For many countries, the elderly don't go to work, but in Vietnam, they want to go to work. In many countries, housewife or husband stay at home, but in Vietnam, we go to work and we also do the housework. That is why in Vietnam, labor force is large and the labor force participation rate is very high. This is one example for US economy. The unemployment rate in US economy is follow the red line, and it fluctuates like this. And from this example, you can see that the highest unemployment rate in US may reach to almost 10%, and the lowest rate is about 3%. Is it high or low? If you compare to Vietnam, Vietnam's unemployment rate is about 2%. So it seems very low compared to US unemployment rate. So what is the reason? Why the unemployment rate in US is so high? It is normal or abnormal? So now, using this chart, we will go to the classification of unemployment. And you will divide or classify unemployment into two types based on the nature of unemployment. Firstly, when you look at this chart or this graph, we can see that in long run, from 1960 to 2010, unemployment always happened. It never be zero. The lowest rate is 3%. So it always happened. And now we say that in long run, unemployment is normal, is inevitable and unavoidable. So we call it natural unemployment. And the blue line shows the natural rate of unemployment. And for a certain year, for example, this year, 1977, the unemployment rate, the actual unemployment rate equal the natural rate of unemployment is about 6%. So we will say that in this year, the unemployment is normal. It's not serious. It's not too good. It's just normal. But for another year, this year, for example, 1982, the unemployment rate is 10%. So it is 4% higher than the natural rate of unemployment. So it is abnormal, and we say that this is cyclical unemployment or the short-run unemployment. The short-run unemployment fluctuates around the natural rate of unemployment, and it may vary with the changes in economic cycle. So in the recession, the unemployment rate is higher than the natural rate. And when the economic develop too much in booming period, the actual unemployment rate is slower than the natural rate of unemployment. This relation between unemployment rate and GDP is called Okun law. So you may search for the Okun law from the textbook. And now we go to the explanation. Why unemployment always happened in the economy? There are typically two reasons for the natural unemployment. Why unemployment always happened? The first reason is frictional unemployment. The frictional unemployment means that we always take some time. It takes some time to find a job that best suits the worker with the job. And because of this reason, it always happened. Unemployment always happened. For example, when you just graduate from the university, you always need some time to find the information of the of the job, or you may need some time to fulfill the profile to the job, or maybe you just need some time for just relax after 4 years of study. So the frictional unemployment rate often includes those students after graduation. The second reason for natural unemployment is the structural unemployment. And the structural unemployment include two groups. The first group is that there are many knowledge, skill, and experience required, but the worker have different skill, different knowledge, or different experience. So it means that in the economy, we have job available, but the worker or the labor cannot match with the job available. The second type is the unequal in the market for labor. Supply of job. In this case, supply of job may equal. We have job available to the demand for job. But because of this reason, the skill or the knowledge is not matched. So there's still unemployment. The last reason for natural unemployment is classical unemployment. And the classical unemployment say that the market for labor cannot be in equilibrium. There's always the surplus of labor for some reason. It's different from this type of unemployment. For this type of unemployment, we have job available, but worker cannot fit or cannot match with this job. But for classical unemployment, there is surplus of labor in the market. Supply of labor is higher than the demand for labor. So why it cannot reach the equilibrium? There are three reasons for this. The first reason is the law of minimum wage. Because of the law, the minimum wage is fixed higher than the equilibrium wage. So firms cannot pay lower than the minimum wage, and this is why we never reach the equilibrium in the market for labor. The second reason is the union and collective bargaining. It means that the labor union always begin for higher wage, and when they require higher wage, the wage increase to W1 higher than equilibrium level. So it also creates the difference between supply of labor and demand for labor. And this difference is unemployment. Slide number 70 shows the effect of labor union in the market with labor union and also in the market with no labor union. For example, in firm A, there is a labor union and they bargain for higher wage. So because of higher wage, supply of labor become higher than demand for labor. And this difference create unemployment. This group of persons unemployed have to find job in another firm. So it will make supply of labor in this firm increase by the same level of unemployment from firm A. And the surplus of labor in firm A forced the wage reduced to W2. And because there is no labor union in firm A, and no one kept the wage constant, so the wage become lower. And as a result, in firm A, when we have labor union, the wage increase, and in firm B, because they have no labor union, the wage reduce. So this is the effect of labor union in the two firms, the firm with labor union and the firm have no labor union. The last reason for higher wage is the theory of efficiency wage. For this theory of efficiency wage, please read carefully the case study of Henry Ford in your textbook to see one empirical fact that increase the wage makes the company more effective. And because of the efficiency wage, increase the wage make firm more effective. So the owner of firm ready to increase the wage, not because of the bargaining of labor union. So after increase the wage, they will require fewer workers. It means that demand for workers reduced. And with the higher wage, more workers want to go to work. So the supply of labor increased. The difference between labor supply and labor demand create unemployment. So please, again, read carefully the Henry Ford's case in the textbook to see why Henry Ford decided to increase the wage higher than equilibrium wage in that time. So now for conclusion, we can see that unemployment always happens in the economy for some reason. And sometimes when the economy fall into recession or fall into economic cycle, the unemployment may even worse or better, worse off or better off. It depends on the economic cycle. If the economy fall into recession, the unemployment rate is even higher than the natural unemployment rate. So here is the introduction and also the measurement of unemployment. And this is the end of part 3, lecture 2.